Donald Trump delivering another brutal day to Wall Street. The Dow plunging more than 971 points, so down nearly another 2.5%. The lower you go, you don't need as much to get a big percent drop. As fears grow about the president's escalating attacks on Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Fed, of course, is an independent entity, and Trump has posted in part, quote, there can almost be no inflation, but there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates now. Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late. Of course, inflation is different in Europe than it is here. And many experts warn that Trump's tariffs are part of the problem here. You can have the horrible combination of terrible impacts on growth as prices are going up at the same time. Stagflation, that means the Fed can't cut rates to solve the problem. And Trump's post comes just days after this threat.
If I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Another warning sign is the price of gold hitting another record high, topping $3,400 an ounce. The U.S. dollar also heading in the opposite direction, hitting a 3-year low today. Makes buying things more expensive for Americans. Dan Ives and Peter Tuchman are both out front. So, Peter, look, you got Jerome Powell, who is a respected professional. All right, I don't know anybody in the business world who doesn't have respect for Jerome. They may not love every single thing he does, but Trump coming out and saying he's a loser and acting this way, what kind of impact does that have on the market? Just seeing that sort of, not just childishness, but that behavior.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, look, I would just say it is pouring gasoline on the fire. That's really this market, because it's part of the sell America trade. The uncertainty that you create. Go back to, for years, you couldn't own the market in China because you had no idea what was going to come out of Beijing in a weekend. That's what's created. And Peter and I talk about this all the time. The uncertainty, the nervousness. And this just adds to it, and that's why this market is just selling off the way it is.
You know what? I'm not a fan of bullying. I think that's ridiculous. If we don't have to go there, right? He's a respected gentleman. I think he's done an amazing, in my opinion,
Powell,
Powell, has done an amazing job. Think about it. We've gotten, inflation down from 8.5% to 2.5%. He has lived up to all his promises, in my opinion, and done an amazing job coming out of COVID. So, the fear is that if God forbid he's able to get him out of there, is we're going to be, changing captains in the middle of a ship that's sort of going down, right? I mean, that's like a tsunami.
And then you could end up, in worst case, you end up with a chairman who actually does what the president wants, who does the bidding.
Exactly, who does not understand the basic premise of economics and what may happen with stagflation. Yep. And the fact is that cutting them now, look, we've gone through 2 years of we're cutting rates. There was an emotional relationship where you cut rates, market rallies, and that's what happens. Yeah. That's not going to happen this time because the components are different.
And exactly, without tariffs, you're cutting.
Yeah.
Tariffs has created, in my opinion, the biggest inflationary move coming out of the White House in the last 100 years.
All right, so I have a friend named Nick who started a small business, and I think it speaks to this, but it actually sets up a huge question about what could be really happening here. So Jamie, who is our fearless stage director, has some things here. All right, thank you, Jamie. Okay, so these things are stuffed animals, right? Okay, now, like I said, Nick has a small business. I think these are really cool. And you collect stuffed animals? You got 30 on your bed?
I love stuffed animals.
Okay, this is a Framel, a frog and a camel mixed together, okay? Sea dog, sea lion, and a dog, and then they make little ones as a penguin and a wolf. Okay, I know, you want to, these are my kids.
I can see Peter out.
So the theory here is what makes us different makes all the difference in the world. They're randomals, okay? And so Nick started this company 5 years ago as his dream. He started making them. It's been doing really well. So let me just show you, because this is actually setting up a really important question. All right, sorry. So right now, Nick has $100,000 paid. All right, paid to 2 factories in China. They're in Shenzhen. So they've got 2 factories, okay? And they have, here's the 2 factories. They have paid $100,000. So they've got a whole bunch of these. You can go to randomals.com, see all the different ones. They're all sitting there waiting to come over. So ordinarily, they go straight from there in Shenzhen, and they get on a big container ship. That's a bad-looking ship, but okay, so you get all the containers. Now, right now, not happening. Yep. In fact, he said literally they don't even know where they're storing them. They're storing them somewhere near these factories. He doesn't know how long they're going to be willing to store them, because in order to get them loaded onto the ship, he has to pay an additional $145,000. So you have to add those 2 numbers together So he has to pay $245,000
To get them on the ship
to
to
get
bring them
them
to America.
on the ship. Okay? And he doesn't have the money to do it.
Of course not.
So his randomals are sitting over in storage somewhere. He doesn't know how long. Okay? And then he says by the time, if this clears up, he wants to get them on the ship. You may not even be able to get container space because so many other people are doing that. His view is this could make the supply chain disruptions during COVID look simple.
It's going to make that almost look like nothing relative to what we're seeing. Look at the ship data that's turning around, coming out of Singapore, coming out, and exactly what he's seeing. It's the math.
Didn't they say that today? Mr. Trump was meeting with people from Target and Walmart CEOs, right, who said that they are sitting there with so much inventory in China that they may just let go down because they can't afford to bring them in there.
And you think, okay, and I also want to say something else about this. He said, okay, so people might say, well, why are you making these stuffed animals in China? And you know what, by the way, I'm not going to say who he looked at, but he looked extensively at doing it in the United States.
Right.
He said, we don't have the supply chain for it. We don't have the materials for it. We don't have the labor for it. And in fact, America doesn't want to be making stuffed animals. We have moved beyond that.
And guess what?
Was the point there.
And guess what I'd also tell you?
Yeah.
Guess who eventually, if he decides to bring it over and pay that, who pays the tariff? The consumer.
Yeah, as much as someone's going to pay extra to buy one of these.
Are we living in some delusion, not realizing that almost everything that we use in our day-to-day life, from our iPhones on down, are made in China? We just saw when China decided to divulge the news that all of our Birkin bags and all of those things are being made there. Yep. Right? I mean, so that's the reality of this.
So how much time, Dan, when you look at it from a tech perspective, and I mean, we're talking stuffed animals here, but iPhones, how much time until the damage he's talking about is done? Where you've got that supply chain disruption. You can't just load the stuffed animals on that container ship in Shenzhen.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
You have 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
I mean, right now, that's why, like, you know, me and Pierre, we've been talking all the time. Time's ticking. Because when inventory ultimately sells down, and you are now getting to a point, we're getting into that red zone. And that's why, like, they need to get deals on the table. You got 3 weeks.
And he said, by the way, for them, they've got to put in the order by sometime in May for Christmas. And that's 80% of sales.
All the small business, right? Exactly. We're already starting to talk about Christmas deliveries.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's kind of nuts. Remember when before you went away for a few days, we talked about the fact that Apple chartered planes to come here with billions of dollars of iPhones. Think about it, $1 trillion company to make it here before the tariffs hit. I mean, it's just almost this odd level of pettiness that's just, it's insanity.
Our money lead now, the market's taking another tumble today with the Dow down nearly 1,000 points at closing. President Trump, of course, is ramping up his fury with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, attacking Powell as Mr. Too Late, a major loser, and demanding that Powell lower interest rates for now. CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich joins me now. Vanessa, has Chairman Powell shown any signs at all that he's listening to Trump's demands that he lower interest rates?
No, and he isn't supposed to. The chairman of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve itself are independent from the federal government, and it was set up to be an independent body making its own economic choices. But this is not the first time that the president has tried to persuade or tell the Federal Reserve what to do. We know that the president, according to the head of the White House Economic Council, is studying whether or not he can actually remove Powell from his post. It is something that has never been done before. Take a listen to how Powell responded to when he was asked of this right after Trump was elected in November.
If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
So you hear Jerome Powell there saying that he is legally not required to leave, even if the president asked him to do so. The president believes that he does have the authority to ask him to do so. But that is essentially what rattled markets today. As you mentioned, the Dow plummeting about 1,200 points as investors were very worried about the Federal Reserve's independence and the president trying to, from the outside, direct the Federal Reserve's policy. Many economists believe, Jake, that prices will increase during President Trump's trade war. That is something that the Federal Reserve is basically designed to do, to try to lower those prices, Jake.
All right, Vanessa, Trump also met today with the CEOs of Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot. All of them are going to be really affected by this trade war. What's at stake with that meeting?
A lot is at stake. All of these retailers have said that they're likely going to have to raise prices because of President Trump's trade war. You have Walmart, the biggest private employer in the United States, essentially pulling back their first quarter outlook because they just don't know what revenue will look like, because they don't know how consumers will respond to higher prices. And ultimately, all of these companies import a lot from China, which is seeing that 145% tariff. Now, will they be able to persuade the president to roll back some of these tariffs? Unclear. We know President Trump likes meeting with CEOs, and we know that the big three automakers, the heads of those companies, have had some impression on the president, as he said he may carve out exemptions for those May 3rd foreign car parts tariffs. So it remains to be seen whether this meeting shifted the president's mindset on any of these tariffs in this trade war.